So about a year ago I made a video called What's Gonna Be the Gimmick of the Nintendo Switch 2. At that time, all we knew was that there was gonna be a successor to the Switch, and quite a lot has happened since then. They actually fully revealed the console, and oh yeah, it released. Let's talk about it. So I think everyone is aware of the Switch 2's existence at this point. It's been out for a few months now, and it seems like everyone's enjoying it. I find it interesting how this console went from basically being an urban legend to just existing now in not too much time. Like we really just have a Switch 2 now. And they actually called it the Nintendo Switch 2.
God knows what kind of terrible name they're gonna come up with for this thing.
I guess I was wrong about that. I mean, the name makes sense, but with Nintendo's track record of names, this is kinda surprising. We really just got a 2 after a Nintendo console's name. They've never done that before. Names aside, I firstly want to talk about what I got right and wrong about the console, as I made a whole video talking about what I thought the console may entail. So in the video, I specifically talk about what gimmick the Switch 2 may have, as Nintendo has typically done some kind of gimmick within the past few consoles. If you haven't seen my original video, I explain it more there. But firstly, I did predict that the Switch 2 would be more powerful, which was pretty obvious. This wasn't really a prediction, more so just something that I think was a given and I figured I'd mention. But hey, that's technically 1 point for getting something right. But you know, who's keeping track anyway? I also said that may be the only thing Nintendo would do for their next console, which thankfully ended up not being true. My main prediction though was that it wouldn't really be any big gimmick and they just do some kind of smaller gimmick or multiple, which I'd say ended up being true. Specifically, I predicted that the system would have a camera and a mic, which ended up basically happening. The console does have a built-in mic, but the camera is an optional accessory. I also said that I hoped they would add specific apps for these like the DS's did, and they didn't end up doing that, which doesn't surprise me too much, but is a bit disappointing. Another hope I had for this console was that they'd give it a bit more personality like previous consoles, which they kinda did. Really just the sound effects for the buttons on the home screen have a bit more pizzazz this time around. We still could end up getting a system update to add more themes like the 3DS did, but at this point this is just cope. I highly doubt this will happen, but I'd love to be proved wrong. Overall, I think I was pretty accurate with my predictions / hopes for this console, and I'm happy with how the console turned out. Now, let's talk about how it was revealed. As I mentioned before, the first mention of the console was in a tweet that simply stated that there would be a successor to the Switch. We wouldn't get further information until they dropped a first look trailer on a random Thursday morning at the end of January. Before this first look trailer, all we knew about the console was from supposed leaks, and some people believe this is even the reason they revealed the console at this time in the first place. Leaks were running rampant, and I guess Nintendo just decided they might as well show off the console themselves. This may not be the case, but I'd at least say this is a pretty good chance. There was one big leak most people were sharing around, and it turned out to be real, which we could clearly tell by comparing it to the officially revealed console. Although they revealed the console, there was still a lot up in the air about it. They kinda just showed what we had seen from the leaks, which is basically how the console itself looks and how the Joy-Cons attach, which is a bit different this time. It's a bigger Switch with Joy-Cons that attach with magnets rather than sliding them in. There's also a better kickstand and charging ports on both sides of the console to make it easier to charge in handheld mode or allow for the connection of multiple accessories. That was all that was 100% confirmed from the console from this trailer, but that wasn't everything the trailer told us. The trailer hinted at a lot of things that wouldn't be officially revealed until later. The Joy-Cons are shown sliding around, which would hint that they could also be used like a mouse. This trailer did also give us our first look at the next Mario Kart game. But I think the most interesting thing about this trailer at the time was the fact that they showed a button on the right Joy-Con that was completely unlabeled. Did they just think we were gonna ignore that, or...? This button ended up being revealed later on as the C button, which is used for online voice chat, but we wouldn't find that out among other things until we got a full Nintendo Direct on the Switch 2, which at the end of this first look trailer they revealed the date for. April 2nd, the Switch 2 Direct, the day we had all been waiting for. The Direct begins by officially revealing the next Mario Kart game, Mario Kart World. An open world Mario Kart game? Seeing this game revealed for the first time was crazy. The game itself looks stunning, and the concept of an open-world Mario Kart game is so cool. The game was revealed to be a launch title for the Switch 2, which I think was pretty good. This game worked well as a launch title. Next, they officially revealed the Joy-Con 2 controllers. Again, the name makes sense. And of course they addressed what the blank button on the right Joy-Con was, and officially revealed it as the C button. Also, why is this called the C button? Is the C for chat, like voice chat? Then wouldn't the button say VC instead? Or if that didn't fit, they could've just put some kinda like microphone voice chat icon? I don't know. Also, Nintendo has had C buttons on previous controllers, but none of those were for anything related to voice chat. I just find the C to be very random. I couldn't find any official source to what the C specifically stands for, but I guess the general consensus is that it's for chat because you use it to connect to what's officially known as game chat. Speaking of which, that's what they went over next in this direct. You can use the C button to connect to voice chats with people that are on your friends list. This is basically just Nintendo's version of an Xbox or PlayStation party. I'm glad they finally added something like this, considering this has been a thing on other consoles for multiple gaming generations at this point. They did also add the ability to screen share whatever game you're playing, which is pretty cool, and I'd say kinda makes up for the fact that they're finally adding voice chat, because this is a feature even modern Xboxes don't have yet. This has been a thing for PlayStation since the PS4 though. The screen sharing on the Switch 2 definitely doesn't look super high quality though, but at least they seem pretty upfront about that considering the footage in the Direct kinda shows this. The voice chat can also become video chat with the Switch 2 camera accessory. Quality for this doesn't look all there either, but hey, this is still a pretty cool feature. Certain games can even implement the camera so your face can be shown in certain parts of the game itself, and they showcase this with Super Mario Party Jamboree. This really screams DS/Wii era Nintendo to me, and that makes me really happy. I'd love to see the camera used in games like this in even more creative and silly ways. This is what Nintendo consoles are all about to me, and I'm glad they're shifting more towards their gimmicky ways with this. The next thing they revealed was Game Share. You may assume this is like sharing games over multiple accounts, but it's actually something like Download Play from the DS. At least that's what I immediately thought of. If you want to play a game with a friend and it's a game that only you own, you can game share the game with him, allowing you to both play even if only one of you owns the game. And you can even game share with up to 3 other consoles at once. You can also do this online, which is more like share play on the PlayStation. Nintendo is typically known as a greedy company, and they honestly kinda deserve it a lot of the time, but this is something that Nintendo did that shows maybe they don't only care about money all the time. The next part of the Direct basically just sums up all the improvements with things we've already seen to confirming things we didn't know the specifics on. Bigger screen, better resolution, better frame rate, HDR support, bigger SL/SR buttons. Thank God. Trying to hit those without the strap was genuinely hell. My hands aren't even that big. I can only imagine how hard it would be to hit those with bigger hands. Especially in the midst of an intense Mario Party game or something. They officially revealed the mouse controls on the Joy-Con 2, which were hinted at earlier. This is a really cool feature in my opinion. I feel like it kinda leans into the gimmicky Nintendo ways like the camera, which I really like. We haven't exactly seen too many uses for this yet, so I'm excited to see what creative ways this can be utilized. The improvements continue with improved speakers, built-in mic, 3D audio, new stand. We really needed this one. The old kickstand fell more times than I can count. 2 USB ports, better storage, 4K dock, fan vent. Switch games are backwards compatible. Damn it, I wanted to play my Switch games only on my Switch 1! Switch 2 Welcome Tour. This is a cool idea. I like being introduced to my console. You know, there's been some phenomenal things to come from tech demos. Wii Sports, Astrobot. Wait, it costs money? $10? Why? This isn't even like a game. It's like a manual that you interact with. I don't hate the idea, but if any tech demo ever should be free, it's this. The game card is red now. Oh, and we gotta use different SD cards now. We can't use the Superstar one anymore. We got a new Pro controller. It of course has a button to use the new voice chat that's kinda awkwardly placed in the bottom middle of the controller, but sure. There are also 2 new back paddles that you can map to replace any other buttons. This is pretty standard with most Pro controllers you see on other consoles, so I'm glad Nintendo finally added something that makes this feel more like a premium controller, rather than just a standard controller for the system. There's also an audio jack to connect wired headphones to the controller. This is something that most other consoles just have on their normal controllers, so I'm glad Nintendo finally added that as well. The release date of the console was then revealed, which is pretty useful I suppose. The next thing talked about is the difference between Switch 2 games, compatible Switch 1 games, and Switch 2 Edition games. Switch 2 Editions being Switch 1 games that have some kind of improvements, whether that be basically new DLC or just improved performance. They used the Switch 2 edition of Mario Party Jamboree as an example of a Switch 1 game with the Switch 2 edition by adding a bunch of features that utilize the new things the Switch 2 introduces like the camera, mic, and mouse controls. Pretty cool that they put this much effort into an update for a Switch 1 game. It is gonna cost you though. They show a few more Switch 2 edition games that include Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which are basically just graphical and frame rate improvements. Which I debate shouldn't really cost you extra to upgrade, but I guess it's a standard for games at this point. Sony did this for the PS4 to PS5 game upgrades as well. We get a look at a new first-party game that exclusively uses the new mouse controls called Drag X Drive. This also kinda just seems like a tech demo honestly, and they're charging $20 for it. It's basically basketball but you're in wheelchairs? Honestly, this caught me kind of off guard. I feel like it's just a really random idea, but it does look kinda fun. At the very least it looks like a good use for the mouse controls. Still really random though. The Direct continues by revealing some new ports as well as some completely new games coming to the Switch 2, these all being third-party games. A new Hyrule Warriors game is shown, which then transitions into the reveal of the Switch Online expansion pack now getting GameCube games coming to the Switch 2. We all kinda expected this at some point, but it's good to finally get it. Kinda interesting that it's a Switch 2 exclusive though. It's not like the Switch 1 couldn't handle GameCube games or something. I guess they just wanted more things to convince people to get the Switch 2 over the original. The Direct thing goes back to showing more third-party games. Now this isn't super related to the Switch 2, but it's something important to me so I'm mentioning it. Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4 announcement? This was like a legend and it actually happened? This is like people saying they're gonna show Silksong in the Direct. Wait, is that fucking Silksong? We got Borderlands 4 too, that's nice. While they were showing some game called Survival Kids, the direct had a few technical difficulties. First the audio wasn't synced, and then the video just froze altogether, and all we could do was listen while looking at Survival Kids. Poor Enter the Gungeon 2 got their entire segment skipped over and the direct fixed right after. They did fully fix this in the full upload later, but having it lag like that live was kinda funny. But man, must suck to be Enter the Gungeon 2. They end the game announcements with a sequel to Kirby Air Ride from the GameCube and a new 3D Donkey Kong game that looks to be the quality of a mainline 3D Mario, which turns out it's developed by the same people that made Mario Odyssey. A lot of people were disappointed that this wasn't a new 3D Mario, but I'd say it's on the same level as one. This was a really cool and exciting game announcement to end things off. And with that, the Switch 2 was revealed. The console would come out a few months later, and here we are today. We actually have a Switch 2. By the way, Kyler, I was not wrong about the gimmick.